Did you know Frederick Douglass' father was white? Neither did I. I just finished reading Frederick Douglass' book. And in this video, I pretty much want to talk about the 3 most psychologically devastating things that Frederick Douglass had to endure. I'm not making this video to victimize ourselves and just keep talking about the burdens of slavery. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with all the physical traumatic parts of slavery, like rape, killing, stealing from slaves, all that type of stuff. Even forcing slaves to have sex with each other so they can make more babies and have more slaves. I think a lot of us are well familiar with just the physical parts, but I just wanted to make this video to focus more on the mental aspect of feeling like a slave based on what I've read. One of the most taxing things that Frederick Douglass had to deal with as a slave was working as a carpenter for basically chump change. Frederick Douglass would work as a carpenter and he was pretty good at it, and he would make $9 a week, which I guess back then was decent money. But after each week, he would literally get none of that money back. What would happen was all that money would go to his slaveholder, and then his slaveholder would be like, "Oh, thank you, man," and just give him 3 cents or 5 cents back. And Frederick Douglass was writing about how much that infuriated the hell out of him, and he said honestly he'd rather not get any money back if you're just gonna give him 4 to 5 cents. Sometimes if he didn't make as much money as he would on a weekly basis, the slave owners would be like, is this all you have for the week? Is this all you got for me? And I guess, and that also was just very taxing for Frederick Douglass. Yeah, imagine you went to work for 40 hours, you were earning whatever money, $40 an hour, $30 an hour, and then at the end of the day, you only get like 2% of that money back. Crazy. Second thing that was extremely, I guess, scary back then, from a mental standpoint, was Frederick Douglass was clearly an abolitionist, and he had a strong desire to be free. And so he was always thinking of how to escape. How the hell do I get out of here? This is not the life I want to have. And for those who don't know, Frederick Douglass actually made 2 attempts of escaping, and the reason why the first attempt failed is extremely sad. So basically, in one of the slave fields that he worked with, he made a group of friends who were also slaves, that they all had a strong bond and they all really trusted each other, and they were all having a good time. And Frederick Douglass was even teaching them how to read. He talked so much about how much he deeply trusted these people and his friends, and they all devised a plan together to escape. When the day for them to actually escape came, one of the white slaveholders was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going?" And apparently they got caught. Before they even made an attempt to escape, the white men figured out what they were trying to do. And the only reason why somebody figured out what they were trying to do was because somebody within that slave group snitched on all 5 of them. And that must have been just super devastating. If you're in his shoes, you've been dreaming of escaping for decades, and the only reason why you were robbed of that freedom or that attempt of freedom was because one of your close friends snitched on you. Like, that nigga's a fuck nigga. Why the hell would you do that? I can understand being scared and not wanting to escape, but why would you snitch on him? Why would you just shut your mouth and just let them go and hope the best for them? Why would you snitch on them? The third thing, and I guess the most important thing that I kind of wanted to strike in this video, was basically being punished for reading. Why Frederick Douglass is so famous is because he's an intellectual, and back then he was one of the few slaves who can actually read. And the only reason why he figured out why reading was so important was actually because of the slave mistreated him and reacted to how he was reading, which is extremely interesting. And so I want to just quickly read this quote where Frederick Douglass finally realized the power of reading. When the slave owner figured out that Frederick was reading, he said this: "If you give a nigger an inch, he would take an L. And nigger should know nothing but to obey his master, to do as he's told to do. Learning will spoil the best nigger in the world. If you teach that nigger how to read, there will be no keeping him. It would forever unfit him to be a slave." And basically the slaveholder was yelling this at him: "Nigga, you can't read, nigga. Like, reading will make you unslave-like." And Frederick was like, if this guy's getting just angry at me for wanting to read, there must be something to this. And so ever since then, he's kind of become obsessed with reading, and he's done so many different things to read. I guess I'm saying this because I love to read. I read a lot of books. I do it for fun, and I can't imagine basically hiding to read. Like, I have to find a quiet place to read. Back then, Frederick Douglass not only was he a lover of reading, but he also loved teaching people how to read. And he would have to have like secret meetings to teach other people how to read. And he was very discreet with it. Back then, slaveholders would keep a nigga dumb and stupid so they couldn't devise a plan to escape or just create wealth or do stuff for themselves to be self-sufficient, which is incredibly sad, but I guess it is what it is. Those are the three things that kind of most stood out to me as being a slave in Frederick Douglass' life. Being paid fucking chump change for working so hard during the week. Just planning how to escape. Like, if you're gonna escape, you have nowhere where to go. You don't know where to get your food. You have to constantly be on the lookout for not just white men. You also gotta be on the lookout for black people because you don't know who you can trust, who's gonna snitch on you, and then just being beaten up trying to learn how to read. All of that is sad. They say if you wanna hide something from a nigga, put it in a book. I hope you're not one of them niggas.